I sued my own mother for ruining my life. We make vows in life, vows to protect, to love, to support. But some people don't just break those vows. They douse them in gasoline and drop a match, watching everything you've built turn to cinders. And sometimes, the arsonist isn't a stranger or an enemy. Sometimes, the person holding the match is the one who brought you into this world. This is a story of betrayal so deep, so calculated, that the only path to justice led through a cold, unforgiving courtroom. This is what happens when a daughter is forced to sue her own mother. My name is Cassandra Evans, but everyone calls me Cassie. For the first 22 years of my life, I would have described my family as perfect. Not flawless, but happy. We lived in a beautiful colonial house in Ridgewood, New Jersey, a town where green lawns and pristine sidewalks hid secrets behind every manicured hedge. My father, Robert Evans, was a kind-eyed civil engineer whose hands were always slightly calloused, a testament to his hard work. He was the anchor, the quiet, steady presence who believed the best in everyone, especially his wife. And his wife, my mother, was Diana Evans. To the outside world, Diana was a paragon of suburban achievement. She chaired the annual town gala, played a fierce game of tennis at the country club, and could whip up a perfect croquembouche for a charity bake sale. Her blonde hair was always impeccably styled, her makeup a mask of effortless elegance. She smelled of Chanel No. 5 and ambition. To me, she was just mom. She was demanding, sure. My BBs were never quite as good as Melissa Carter's A's. My second-place ribbon in the science fair was a good effort, but a silent disappointment. I learned to chase her approval like a dog chasing a car, never knowing what I'd do with it if I ever actually caught it. The foundation of my life was built on the assumption of their love, a love I never thought to question. My father's was unconditional. My mother's was a prize to be won. I worked tirelessly to win it. I got into Northwestern University, a fact Diana announced to her friends as if it were her own personal achievement. "We're just so thrilled," she'd gush, her arm tight around my shoulders. "All our sacrifices paid off." I never quite knew what those sacrifices were, but I smiled and nodded. It was during my senior year at Northwestern that the first crack appeared. A tiny, almost invisible hairline fracture. My father called me, his voice strained, a quality I'd never heard before. "Hey, kiddo, just checking in. Money's a little tight this semester, so maybe go easy on the textbook spending, okay? Use the library." It was odd. My father had always been generous, almost to a fault. I dismissed it as a temporary cash flow issue. I started working extra hours at the campus coffee shop, assuming I was helping. Then, 3 months before graduation, the foundation shattered. Completely. I was in the middle of studying for my finals, fueled by cheap coffee and anxiety, when my phone rang. It was my aunt, my mother's sister, Carol. Her voice was a ragged tear in the fabric of my normalcy. "Cassie, honey, you need to come home. Now." My blood went cold. "Aunt Carol, what's wrong? Is it Dad?" There was a long, painful silence. It's everything. Your dad, he's in the hospital. It's his heart." I was on the next flight out of O'Hare, my world reduced to a blur of airport lights and a cold, gnawing dread in my stomach. I raced to the hospital in Ridgewood, my suitcase wheels clacking a frantic rhythm on the linoleum floors. I found my mother in the waiting room. She was perched perfectly on a vinyl chair, her legs crossed, meticulously applying a new coat of red lipstick using her phone's camera as a mirror. She didn't look like a woman whose husband was fighting for his life. She looked like she was waiting for a lunch reservation. "Mom? Dad? Is he okay?" She glanced up, her expression one of mild annoyance at being interrupted. "Cassandra, you made it. The doctors are with him. It was a severe myocardial infarction, stress-induced, apparently." She said it like she was reading from a medical textbook, devoid of any emotion. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. My father had survived, but he needed rest, a lot of it. No work, no stress. We brought him home a week later, pale and fragile, a ghost of the robust man I knew. That's when the real nightmare began. Sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by piles of unopened mail and medical bills, I tried to get a handle on our finances. My mother was curiously absent, claiming a migraine. That's when I found it. A letter from the bank. Final notice. Notice of default. Of foreclosure proceedings were being initiated. My hands trembled. "Mom, what is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She drifted into the kitchen, wrapping her silk robe tighter around herself. "Oh, that. I meant to handle that. Your father's illness has just thrown everything into disarray." "Disarray? Mom, they're going to take the house. How are we behind on the mortgage? Dad's business was doing well." She sighed, a long, suffering sound. "The business hasn't been doing well for over a year, Cassandra. He hid it from you. Poor investments. Bad luck. It's not his fault, really." It sounded plausible. My father was too trusting. Maybe he'd been swindled. I believed her. I had to. I dropped my job search in Chicago and moved back home, using my graduation money to keep the lights on, taking a miserable administrative job at a local dental office to help with the mountain of bills. I was the dutiful daughter, holding my family together. The lies were a spider web, and I was only seeing the first few strands. The truth revealed itself in the dead of night, a month later. My father was asleep. I was looking for a stamp in his old home office desk drawer when my hand brushed against a small, cold key taped to the underside of the drawer. It felt like a secret. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew, with a chilling certainty, what it opened, the small fireproof lockbox on the closet shelf. With fumbling fingers, I opened it. I expected a will, maybe some old bonds. What I found was a curated collection of my family's destruction. On top was a life insurance policy on my father for $1 million. My mother was the sole beneficiary. Beneath that was a second, secret mortgage taken out on the house a year ago, one my father knew nothing about. The signature was a forgery, a shaky imitation of his confident scrawl. And then, the final devastating blow, a series of bank statements, for an account in my name, an account I never opened. My breath hitched. I scanned the statements. Large regular transfers had been made from my father's business account into this shadow account bearing my name. Then just as regularly, the money was transferred out, drained, and sent to an account numbered to an entity called DDE Holdings. My college tuition? Transferred from this fake account. My dorm fees? This account? The money my dad had sent me for living expenses? It had all been funneled through this fraudulent vessel, making it look like I was the one bleeding him dry. And the final transfer, the one that made me physically sick, was a $150,000 withdrawal dated the week after my father's heart attack. The money was gone, all of it, the world tilted on its axis. The room was silent except for the ragged sound of my own breathing. This wasn't bad luck. This was a meticulously planned heist. And the thief was sitting in her bedroom down the hall, probably dreaming of her new life. Confronting her was a surreal horror show. I marched into her room, the documents clutched in my hand like a weapon. I threw them on her pristine white duvet. "What is this?" My voice was low, shaking with a fury so pure it was cold. She looked at the papers, then at me. Her face didn't register shock or guilt or fear. It registered irritation. "You went through my things? Your things? This is a bank. Account in my name! You stole from Dad! You stole from me! You were stealing from him while he was in the hospital." She calmly got out of bed, her composure a terrifying contrast to my unraveling. "Don't be so dramatic, Cassandra. I was protecting us." "Protecting us from what?" "From his incompetence," she snapped, her mask finally slipping. A flash of venomous anger shone through. That man was going to work himself into an early grave and leave us with nothing. I was securing my future. Our future. That money is rightfully mine. I built this family. I maintained this image. I did the work he never could. Those charity galas, those country club memberships, they didn't pay for themselves. They were an investment. And now, thanks to his weakness, it's all gone. I was just reclaiming what was mine. I stared at her, at this stranger I had called Mom. She didn't see a family. She saw assets and liabilities. She saw a husband as a failing business and a daughter as a useful pawn. The love, the birthdays, the Christmases, the scraped knees, the college acceptances. It was all set dressing for her performance. "I'm going to the police," I said, my voice hollow. She actually laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "And tell them what? Did you just discover an account you've been using for years? The signatures are excellent, darling. I've been practicing for a long time. It's your word against mine. Who do you think they'll believe? The distraught, greedy daughter who's been siphoning money from her sick father, or the devastated widow, well, soon-to-be widow, who's been victimized by her own family? Widow." The word hung in the air. The life insurance policy. A cold dread washed over me. His heart attack. The stress she had deliberately, systematically inflicted upon him. Was it just about money? Or was it about a quicker payout? I left that house that night. I took the evidence and I left. I moved in with my Aunt Carol, who held me while I sobbed, the full weight of the betrayal crushing me. She confessed she'd always suspected Diana was narcissistic and cruel, but never imagined this. The following months were a blur of grim determination. The police were, as my mother predicted, skeptical. It was a civil matter, a family dispute. The district attorney wouldn't touch it without ironclad proof of intent. My father, recovering slowly, was shattered in a way his heart attack could never accomplish. The man was broken. He confirmed he knew nothing of the second mortgage, or the fake account. He had trusted his wife implicitly with all their finances. I realized then that the law wouldn't give me criminal justice. The system saw a messy divorce, not a crime. But I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her walk away with everything she'd stolen, not just the money, but my father's health, my future, my sense of reality. If the state didn't press charges, I would become the plaintiff. I hired a fierce, no-nonsense lawyer named Miriam Castillo, who specialized in financial fraud and civil litigation. Her eyes hardened as I laid out the story. "This is one of the worst cases of familial fraud I've seen," she said, her voice like steel. "We're going to sue her for everything: intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, conversion, forgery. We're going to take her for every penny she stole and then some." The lawsuit was my revenge. It was my only recourse. The day the papers were served, my mother called me. For the first time, her voice wasn't composed. It was shrill, laced with a fury I relished. "How dare you? I am your mother. You will withdraw this ridiculous lawsuit immediately. You are embarrassing this family." "You stopped being my mother the first time you forged my signature," I said, my voice eerily calm. "And you destroyed this family all by yourself. See you in court." The trial was a special kind of hell. Sitting in a sterile courtroom, watching my mother sit at the defendant's table, perfectly coiffed, playing the part of the wounded, bewildered matriarch. Her lawyer painted me as an ungrateful, money-hungry daughter who had squandered her allowance and was now trying to blame her mother for her own financial misfortunes. But we had the evidence. We had the forged signatures analyzed by a forensic document examiner, who testified with 99.7% certainty that they were not mine. We had the paper trail leading straight to her shell company, DDE Holdings, Diana Davis Evans. We had bank officials testifying that she was the one who had set up the account, presenting a driver's license and a student ID that belonged to me, which had gone missing from my room years ago. The most damning moment came when my father took the stand. He looked old and tired, but his voice was clear. He described his trust, his love, his utter blindness. He looked directly at my mother and said, "I gave you everything, Diana. My love, my trust, my life. And you tried to take my daughter's future, and you almost took my life. I don't know you." Her mask didn't just slip, it shattered. Under cross-examination by Miriam, her composure finally broke. When confronted with the timing of the $150,000 withdrawal days after my father's near-fatal heart attack, Miriam asked, "What was so urgent, Mrs. Evans, that you needed that money while your husband was fighting for his life? A new car? A down payment on a condo? What was worth more than his life?" Diana's eyes flashed with a terrifying, naked hatred. "It was worth everything. He was a failure. That money was mine. I earned it. I deserved it." The courtroom fell silent. In that one unguarded moment, she had shown the jury exactly who she was. The verdict wasn't surprising. The jury found for me on every single count, She was ordered to repay every cent she had stolen with interest. She was ordered to pay punitive damages for the emotional distress. The judgment was so large that the life insurance policy, the house, every asset she had, everything was seized and liquidated to satisfy it. She was left with nothing. There was no dramatic apology, no moment of reconciliation. As she left the courtroom, bankrupt and exposed, she shot me a look of pure, undiluted venom. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You've destroyed your own family. You're dead to me." I looked back at her, the woman who had given me life and had then tried to ruin it systematically. The anger was gone, replaced by a vast, empty pity. "You did that long before I ever walked into this courtroom," I said quietly. "You were dead to me the moment I realized a stranger had been living in my mother's skin." I didn't get my mother back. I didn't get my old life back. The money recovered was used to pay off the debts and secure a small, comfortable home for my father to convalesce in. The rest went into a trust for his care. My revenge wasn't sweet. It was ashes in my mouth. But it was justice. It was the truth, laid bare in a public record for all to see. I had forced her to be held accountable. I had taken back the narrative she had so carefully crafted to paint herself as the victim. I sued my mother for ruining my life. And in that cold, unforgiving courtroom, I didn't get a new life. But I got something perhaps more valuable. I got my truth back. And I got to be the one who walked away, free from her shadow, while she remained forever chained to the consequences of her own toxic poison. Some vows are meant to be burned. And from those ashes, sometimes we have to rebuild ourselves alone. If you faced a betrayal this deep, share your story in the comments below. You are not alone. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories of justice from the courtroom. This is Vows Burn. Until next time.